Welcome back to the Mark Moses Show, only right here on Sports Radio 95.9 The Fan. And right now joining me here in studio, first here on the Mark Moses Show, an actual professional surfer and motivational speaker. I've been waiting to get one of these guys on the show, so I appreciate Shaun Tomson, yes, former world champion surfer and motivational speaker, joining the show today. We're going to talk about a great event going on Wednesday night here in Melbourne, and we're going to talk about his career. So, Shaun, how you doing today, man?
Man, it's good to be here in Florida. It's been some time since I was back here.
What are your thoughts? Let's start with this, okay? What is going on exactly Wednesday night here in Melbourne?
So I'm doing an event for Holy Trinity Episcopal Academy at 6:30 p.m. It's a free event. It's open to all members of the public. I'm talking to the kids at school before that, and I love to go around sharing my message of hope, optimism, and commitment to schools all over the country. I speak to about 100,000 kids every year, and I speak to the biggest corporations as well, from General Motors, Google, Cisco, corporations like that as well, with a similar message. But I believe that surfing and sports are a wonderful metaphor for life, and there's great lessons that one can learn from surfing, and great lessons that one can learn from sport, even though a lot of sportsmen haven't learned the fundamental lessons that sports should teach them. It's interesting to see how many great sportsmen have fallen from grace recently, and they've forgotten the fundamental values that have gotten them there in the first place.
No, you're absolutely right. And okay, I got to ask the generic question then. How many years have you been surfing, man?
Yeah, I've been surfing for 50 years. I've been surfing a long time. Surfing is a passion of mine still. I started surfing way back in the 60s. My father introduced me to surfing. He had a great love and passion for the beach, even though he was really nearly killed by a shark attack while he was surfing on a little board. He never lost his love for the ocean, and he transferred that to me, and I've been a stoked surfer ever since.
What are your thoughts on the beaches around here? I know we get some shark attacks as well. What are your thoughts on these Melbourne, or just, up and down 95, all the beaches we have here in Florida?
Well, there's some really good surf here in Florida, down in Sebastian Inlet. There's some good waves. There's some good waves up around New Smyrna and Ponce Inlet. But the most famous export relative to surfing in the state of Florida is Kelly Slater. I mean, one of the greatest athletes of all time, an incredible surfer, a friend of mine, a guy who's won 11 world titles, and he's still in the running for his 12th. It's going to go down to the Banzai Pipeline in December. And there have been some other great surfers out of the state of Florida. CJ Hobgood was a world champion back in 2000. So a lot of good surfers come out of a place like this, which doesn't have incredible surf, but it has a pretty consistent surf.
We're here with Shaun Tomson, former world champion surfer and motivational speaker. He'll be speaking Wednesday night here in the Melbourne area about his great career and just life lessons as well. I like how you're saying that earlier. Here's my thought on surfing, okay? You look at the game of golf or even basketball. You never conquer it. You go out, you can have the worst day ever. Next day, you can be great. You never conquer the sport. Is that the same thing you think when you look at surfing, where one day you're going to be awful, the next day you can be great?
Well, with all due respect to the great game of golf, you have that green, and the green ain't moving. The green's not going to fold over you and smash you into the coral. A great white shark's not going to come up beneath you and possibly nip at your board. So I think the consequences associated with many other sports are very different. So I think with surfing, you have that connection to nature, and then also you're trying to not conquer so much as align yourself with the variability of the ocean. So there's a lot of variables associated with surfing. So for a guy like Kelly Slater to win 11 world titles, it's an absolutely amazing achievement. And I think he's the greatest athlete of all time. I mean, sure, people will speak about Michael Jordan and they'll speak about Muhammad Ali. But here's a guy who's conquered the variability of surfing, and surfing is way more variable than any other sport today, I believe.
What's interesting is I tell people, they go, why are you on the radio? And I go, I like the rush of being on the air. I admit it. Yeah. I like being on the air. I like to perform. I like to entertain for people. I like that rush. Do you get that rush as well when you're out there?
You get an incredible adrenaline rush in surfing. The absolute best part of surfing is riding inside the tube. So you riding inside this watery hurricane. And what happens is you're riding at the absolute maximum speed of your board. You're completely enclosed in this tunnel of water, and it's spinning away from you, and you're very conscious of time. You're actually so conscious of time, it seems like time is actually happening around you in slow motion because you're perceiving reality so fast. And sometimes, at the very best moment, you actually feel that you can curve that wall to your will. You actually feel that you're in control of the wave. It's an absolutely existential moment. It's a moment when you feel that you are absolutely in the right time at the right place, right then, right there. It's an amazing moment of exhilaration, a moment of passion, and also there's no sensation of sound. It feels like you're completely enclosed in like this cone of silence. But you're moving incredibly fast, and that's called the feeling of being stoked.
Okay, all right. What about when it doesn't go right? When you're in there and then this is going to be crash and burn time. What's that feeling like?
Sometimes those wipeouts happen in slow motion as well. So sometimes you can actually skip across the surface of the water, like someone has thrown a stone across the surface, and you bounce and you bounce and you bounce, and you can feel that impending doom. And what happens? Sometimes that wave hits you so hard. I'm assuming it's what it's like to be run over by a cement mixer. The water is not soft when a wave is 25 feet, and then it'll smash you down to the coral below. So you'll be surfing over a razor sharp coral. It'll smash you on that coral, drag you across, chop you up. Or sometimes you'll get stuck down there on that reef, and you know that you've got 17 seconds to get back to the surface, because big waves come in sets. They'll come in a group, and the period or the distance between the waves is about 17 seconds. So if you don't get back up to the surface in 17 seconds, the next wave is going to smash down on you, and the chances of drowning if you're under 2 are pretty good. I've spoken to a couple of guys that have been under 2 and survived. I've been under 2 and survived. You've got no chance. I've never spoken to a guy that's been under 3. So you've got to get back to the surface really quick. And there's that moment where you are always trying to relax. I mean, you're trying to put yourself into a ball and relax, but there's that moment when you hit that panic button, and it happens to all of us.
Yeah.
You just start scrambling for that surface, using up all your oxygen, just hoping that you can get that gulp that's going to save you.
We're here with Shaun Tomson, former champion surfer and motivational speaker. He's talking Wednesday night here in the listening area. We'll put that on our website and Facebook as well for more info if you guys want to go to the free event. What about movies where they show surfing scenes? Are you just sitting there like, this isn't real? This is stupid. Even the part when they're talking to each other out there. Can you listen to each other talk, or is it just too loud out there?
No, we sit in the lineup, and sometimes we'll have a philosophical discussion on the meaning of life. Yeah, right. No, but most of the movies are really corny. I actually made a movie a couple of years ago called Bustin' Down the Door. It was a documentary about a group of young guys. I was one of the guys, about what we had to do in order to succeed in Hawaii. It was a particularly volatile time, both from a perception of how we wanted to change the sport and the resistance that we got from a group of gangsters in Hawaii. So it was a really cool movie, Busting Down the Door. It was actually a real story, and it was true to life. But most of the Hollywood stuff, whether it's Point Break or Big Wednesday or Blue Crush, it's kind of trashy. And
come on. I love Point Break, though. Come on.
Yeah, but the surfing, how they actually portray surfing is not really true to life. I know Point Break 2 is coming out right now, so it's just going to be interesting to see what happens this time. But I think that there is the real part of surfing is, I think, so wonderful, and it's so inspiring, and it's so exhilarating that I would prefer to reflect that than kind of the trashiness like Surf Gangs of New York.
Well, here's the thing, though. If people in our listening area are interested, they've never surfed before, all right? What are some of the tips you can give them if they've never been out there? And like, because you know what's interesting is you go to the surf stores around this area, right? And I hear this conversation every time where someone's like, I'd like to go do that. And they tell you, just rent it for the day, the surfboard, and then take some lessons. Like, no, I'll just buy it. I'll buy this. What is the actual tips you would give them? 50 years of experience. What tips would you give them if they want to get out there?
Well, if you want to get out there and experience it, I'd say the best thing to do is get to a surf school and rent a board for a day, like you say, and rent a soft board. Make sure the board is soft and make sure the board is long, and get some lessons. But the simple instruction, if you're starting out for the very first time, is fast and fluid. You want to get to your feet as quickly as you can, as fluidly as you can, because surfing, the style that you need to adopt is similar to the way a wave breaks. It breaks with fluidity. It's connected, obviously, to water. So if you have that as your mantra, fast and fluid, and for every person that starts that surfing experience for the first time, there's two incredible moments. One is that when you paddle out towards the horizon and you leave all the cares and worries of the world behind you, you just have that beautiful blue expanse of water ahead of you. It's an incredible feeling just to paddle out to the horizon, and then you swing around and you catch that wave for the first time and you stand up. And when you stand up for the first time, you have that moment of exhilaration, but also for the first time, you'll have a different perspective on life. You're moving on this band of energy that was created thousands of miles away by a storm somewhere. And that feeling of just riding on this band of energy, that's the moment that I still remember when I was 9 years old, and that has kept me surfing. That first moment of seeing the world differently and being stoked.
9 years old. Most 30-year-olds can't do what you just said. I give you credit. Let me end with this then, all right? What about those sharks, man? That's what my mother always talks about. Watch out for those sharks. Watch out for those sharks. Have you been bit by a shark, or what have been your interactions?
Well, sharks were a fear of mine, obviously, because my father was nearly killed by a shark attack, and it nearly bit his arm off and ended his, he had Olympic swimming aspirations. So when we used to surf in South Africa, we only used to surf inside shark nets. They were nets that were erected 350 yards offshore because there was a very fearsome shark in South Africa called the Zambezi shark, which accounted for about 97% of the attacks. So sharks have always been a scare of mine, but I suppose one has to look at the statistics, and I think you have about as much chance of being struck by lightning twice as you have of being attacked by a shark. But still, the risk is there. Like I say, when you walk along that green and you want to, sink that little ball into the hole, that's not a concern that you're going to be consumed by sharks. So we have to live with that every day, but I suppose it does sort of heighten the experience in some way.
Hey, golf has crocodiles. Come on. They have that at least.
Yes. I mean, I'm certainly not I think golf.
No, you're fine.
Golf's a great game, and I love it. And a lot of my mates are fully into it, and it's an incredible challenge. But there is sort of a little bit of a different challenge with what we do and what I did.
You never know what's going to be in the water. You're absolutely right. All right, before I let you go, what's the event going on Wednesday night?
So the event at 6:30 at Holy Trinity Episcopal Academy. It's open to the public. It's free. And what I talk about is I just give a perspective on a committed, passionate life. I talk about faith. I talk about hope. And I talk about my journey from darkness into light. I lost my beautiful 15-and-a-half-year-old son to a bad choice a number of years ago. And since then, my life has gone in a different direction. And certainly I love to share my message with the community. And I can promise you that it's going to be an enlightening experience. It's going to be an emotional experience. And it's going to be a wonderful experience if you bring your children along as well.
And I'm also going to be giving away your book, which is on Amazon. If you could tell us, what's it called exactly?
The book's called The Code, The Power of I Will. The book is about commitment, hope, faith, camaraderie, about values. And when I speak to kids all over the world, I encourage them to commit to a set of values, to commit to writing their own code, which is a really simple exercise of 12 lines. Every line begins with I will. And the most important thing that I tell young people all around the world, because 1 million people in the United States die every year from bad choice, it's the single biggest killer in the country, is when you are faced with a decision, just think twice.
Great stuff. I'll see you at Point Break, too. Shaun Tomson, thank you so much for coming. I know you're a busy man, and good luck with the event Wednesday night.
Awesome, Mark. Thanks for having me on. Stay stoked, pal.